We don't truly know why we dream. Science hasn't really answered this question. Most people don't think much about their dreams. They dismiss them as random noise from the brain, forgotten just moments after waking. Others are fascinated by them, but then they just turn to so-called dream dictionaries to find meaning, asking what each image means as if the unconscious speaks in a code that can be translated word for word. But while that might be fun, it offers no real answers. There is no predetermined, objective meaning for these things. Yet, many of us have awoken from dreams that feel different. Powerful, mysterious, emotional. Dreams that seem to carry a message, as if from the gods themselves. I've had those dreams too, and my skeptical mind wanted to know whether there truly was a message or a meaning, and if so, how could it be understood? And there is in fact one method in psychology that approaches this question seriously, the method developed by Carl Jung. Jung discovered that dreams are not random, they're gateways into the unconscious, where the deepest and most personal lessons can be learned. This video will show you how to analyze a dream through that lens, how to uncover what your unconscious is trying to tell you. I'll use one of my own dreams as an example, showing both the right and wrong way to interpret it. And to help bring the imagery to life, I'll use AI to approximate some of the scenes as I describe them. Now let's begin. I find myself in the middle of some kind of ancient communal ritual, standing near a pond. I know why I'm here. I'm expected to sacrifice my life. Before the sacrifice, I may enter the water as a final cleansing, a sacred rite. I feel no fear. In fact, I'm happy to go into the water. There's something freeing about it. Around me, the people performing the rituals are mourning as they sing a hauntingly beautiful song. Inside the water, a sacred figure, like an old priest of sorts, waits for me. He stands silently, calmly, and I move toward him. Then the dream shifts, and suddenly I'm no longer a character in it, but I'm just watching it unfold. In an ancient temple courtyard, a large snake is being cared for. It had been raised its entire life in this place, tended to with reverence, before finally being released into the temple gardens, with a pond at its center. People are gathered there, again performing rituals. Among them is a mysterious woman with long, elaborate nails. She gently draws the snake closer to her, and the snake has antlers like those of an elk, strange and majestic. As it approaches her, the people perform their prescribed act. They decapitate the snake. Immediately, the snake grows a new head, but now it's younger, renewed. It slithers forward again, following the woman through the temple gardens. The ritual around them grows more intense and feverish. The music swells, and at the edge of the pond, a man throws a handful of seeds from a basket onto the damp earth. The pond begins to stir. The water thrashes, but I don't know why. And then I wake up. So what could all of this mean? As soon as I woke up, I wrote it down, which is perhaps the first and most important step if you want to understand your dreams. You will forget nearly everything from them rather quickly. So get into the habit of writing them down or making a voice memo on your phone. You'll soon find that your dreams have themes that you didn't realize were there, especially recurring elements you may never have noticed otherwise. This dream is unique in that it had two sections with recurring elements. You likely noticed that a pond, a ritual, and a sacrifice of sorts appeared in both parts of the dream. This really underscores the importance of these elements. Actions can be easier to interpret than objects. Thus, a ritual and a sacrifice probably represent exactly that, a sacred act indicating spiritual importance, and the end of one thing for the start of another. As sacrifices always have a purpose, yet the pond, that's not in action. What could it mean? Rivers, rain, floods, ponds, all of them are water, but they don't represent the same things. In a form like this, a pond, which felt important as the location where I was to sacrifice myself and where the second part of the dream ended, Jung would likely consider it to symbolize the unconscious itself. It represents the vast, mysterious realm beneath consciousness, the source of dreams, instincts, and forgotten experiences. Entering or immersing in water usually symbolizes descending into that unconscious realm, confronting its contents or allowing oneself to be cleansed or renewed by it. In fact, Jung wrote, "The descent into the depths always seems to precede the ascent. Every descent is followed by an ascent. The water is the symbol of the unconscious, the place where the transformation happens." If I were to interpret this the wrong way, using a dream dictionary, I'd probably say the snake means danger, the pond means emotion, and the sacrifice means loss, or something like that. But that approach misses the point entirely because it treats symbols as fixed instead of living. The most striking image was perhaps the snake, and not just a snake, but a chimera, a blend of two animals. People might see it as evil or unnatural, but that's mostly a Western association. Across cultures, the snake is a symbol of transformation and wisdom. It sheds its skin and renews itself. The antlers, too, are rich in symbolism, strength, growth, regeneration. But again, there's no dictionary definition that could explain this. Only personal reflections can. Not even Jung would simply give me a meaning. He could only guide me toward asking the right questions and discovering what the symbol means to me. Still, much dream symbolism is shared, as evident in the concept of the archetype. Archetypes are universal themes within the human psyche, shared patterns that appear across people and cultures. You can think of them as ideas that take on different forms depending on the individual. For instance, the mother archetype represents nurturing and love everywhere, but each of us experiences it differently. Through personal symbols, a nest, an egg, a childhood object, this is why we can't rely on dream dictionaries. Archetypes provide the roadmap, but your personal experience provides the meaning. Archetypes often manifest in the characters in dreams, particularly when they are not real people from our waking lives. I dreamt of 3 people in mind, none of whom actually exist: the sacred priest in the water, the woman who lured the snake forward, and the seed sower at the end of the dream. Who are they? And why did they stand out from the crowd of anonymous people performing rituals? In my dream, the woman with the long, ornate nails who draws the snake close could easily be an anima figure, alluring, ritualistic, and powerful. Her role seems to facilitate transformation. She doesn't kill the snake, but she draws it in toward the act of death and renewal. She might represent that instinctive feminine wisdom, the part of me that initiates change rather than resists it, that knows renewal requires loss. And what of the priest and the seed sower? Perhaps these figures are easier to interpret, or perhaps not. But I'll move on for the sake of time. Another common theme, of course, was sacrifice. Not only did the dream begin with me preparing to sacrifice myself, but the snake too was sacrificed, and then reborn. In Jungian terms, sacrifice often represents the death of an old attitude, an outdated part of the psyche that must be given up so something new can emerge. It's not about destruction, but transformation. The ego, our sense of who we are, has to surrender its control so that the deeper self can take form. That's why the sacrifice in dreams often feels sacred rather than tragic. It's an offering. Something within us is being given to the unconscious so that it can be renewed and returned in a different shape. In my dream, entering the pond felt peaceful. There was no resistance to the sacrifice, only acceptance. Likewise, the snake's death was immediately followed by its rebirth, younger and renewed. Both scenes seem to echo the same truth, that transformation requires loss. Whether it's an old belief, an old identity, or a part of ourselves that we've outgrown, something has to die before something new can live. Perhaps that's why at the end of the dream, the seed sower was throwing seeds onto the banks of the pond. Seeds clearly represent the start of something new, and he was throwing them precisely where the land and the water meet, the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. And upon that act, the water began thrashing. What an interesting change. Perhaps you can tell me in the comments what you think that might mean, or what the chimera or any other symbol in this dream represents. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I'll end the analysis here, as I believe the point has been made. To summarize, there are a few things to keep in mind when analyzing your dreams. First, as soon as you wake up, you need to write down or record somehow the dream. You will forget, so this step is fundamental, especially when a dream feels important. That feeling is the greatest indicator that your unconscious is providing you with wisdom. Second, do not rely on dream dictionaries. Rather, explore what the symbols mean to you. Dive deep into their state and feeling. What emotions present, what repressed part of you could be manifesting. Be detailed. Remember the example of water. Was it moving, clear or murky, calming or threatening? Third, do not be rigid and do not jump to conclusions. It may be better to simply revisit the dream again and again, rather than assigning it a fixed meaning. The unconscious speaks in a language far from logic, so logic is limited in its use here. Dreams are not puzzles for us to solve. They're relationships to cultivate. If you meet them with humility, pen in hand, attention on feeling rather than formula, they begin to speak more clearly. Sometimes they'll repeat themselves until you listen. Sometimes they'll offer a symbol you won't understand for weeks, and that's fine. Let them work on you. So when the next dream arrives, don't Google it, sit with it, write it down, and ask what it means to you, and notice what in your waking life is trying to balance or renew. If a sacrifice is asked, consider which belief or habit no longer serves you. If water appears, ask whether you're being invited to descend, to be cleansed, to be emerged, to drown. We spend a third of our lives in that other world, and it isn't separate from this one. It's like an underground river that feeds it. Learn its current, and it will carry you toward wholeness. If you'd like to explore more of this kind of work with me, the language of dreams, the unconscious, and everything beneath the surface, subscribe and join the conversation. I would love to hear your stories too. And until then, keep dreaming.